Our reading today comes from theologian, activist, and civil rights pioneer Howard Thurman. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance, but I had forgotten. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure that it would illumine my path for the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey. Details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. I think there is a connection between the Anne Bushnell poem and this Howard Thurman reading. In the Anne Bushnell poem, she talks about the old year, clothes tattered and muddy, slowly pumping the bicycle up through December. The tire is low, the chain guard is gone, panting, barely, the old year makes it to the New Year's Eve. And then there's a fresh young year in nice clothes with a plump hand that waits on a bicycle. And that hand waves once and clutches the handlebars and zooms into the new year, fresh with high resolve. And the old year sighs and limps into history. Nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just a year that takes it out of us. And here we come into the new year full of resolve, full of the ideas of what this new year may bring. Perhaps you make resolutions, perhaps you don't do that anymore. Perhaps you have a word of the year. This is something that's a little popular these days, not to make a resolution, but to choose a word of the year. There's even a word of the year generator. I did one that was arranged by a comedian, and I think that she chose words that sounded funny to her ears. So apparently my word of the year with a random generator is plucky. Plucky. I don't know exactly, I'm not exactly sure what plucky means, but I think it's not a bad word. Gary and Marty are pointing to me. Maybe pluck is something that we have when we face hard times or good times, and we meet the times we are in with a sense of humor. There's a viral TikTok video that has been put up this year. A woman named Erin Monroe filmed herself in her fluffy pink bathrobe with a cup of coffee in her hands, and she said, I need 2023 to come in, sit down, shut up, and don't touch anything. I need a palate cleanser year. Our theme this month is finding our center, and I think it comes somewhere between the moments of our high resolve and the need to be still, the need to just be human beings, not human doings. And of course, we live somewhere in between. We live in the place of, I am enough and I'm not enough. I had a teacher in seminary, a supervisor, who said to me, the one thing I want you to learn from me is you are enough and you're not enough. She was talking about going into rooms in the hospital when I was doing pastoral care training. And she said, you are enough to go in and be present with people, and you are not enough to solve whatever is their problem at the moment. And that advice has served me very well, to remember I am enough and I'm not enough. And I think that feels very much where finding the center lives for me. I am enough. I am not enough. I give help when I can. There is help for me. I am enough. I am not enough. I have moments of high resolve when I am committed. My life is committed to something, and life comes in. Nothing flagrant, nothing overwhelming, just 1,000 details and 2,000 emails that distract my attention from wherever it was that I was headed on a path. I think what we like to do, and what media and society tells us that we do on New Year's, is to reset the calendar. If you work with a paper calendar, oh, I remember those days of a paper calendar, the whole year before you, fresh. Now with an electronic calendar, I don't feel that so much of a fresh expanse before me. But in fact, that switch is a bit of an illusion, because yesterday started as a blank slate in the same way that today does, and tomorrow does, and June the 15th, and July the 18th, and November the 8th, they're all one more fresh day, and they're a day like any other, as January 1st is a day like any other. So for me, I think finding that center is between the moment of the high resolve and the day like any other. There was a sense for us during the pandemic, still in the pandemic, but there was a sense, I think, at the beginning of 2021, we had a year of 2020. Maybe this next year will be better. At the beginning of 22, we finally got some vaccines. Maybe it will really be better. And maybe we're learning as a people in this new paradigm, this new way to gather, this new understanding of existential crisis, the climate crisis, that there won't be a palate cleanser year, that this is the new normal. And so my high resolve is a way to stay connected both to the reality of the world, the human doingness, and the still quiet moment. Perhaps the still quiet moment is a high resolve. E.B. White said, I wake up in the morning torn between desire to change the world and the desire to enjoy the world as it is. It makes it hard to plan the day. As we think about finding our center between the reach for being a better self and helping create a better world, and the still quietness that lets us appreciate the world as it is. I think we balance on that edge. My hope for us is that we don't only balance on that edge on New Year's Day, but that we take that balance less on the peak and more on an even keel. Keep ourselves on a continuum, that we don't have to always be reaching for the highest resolve, because if I live there, I burn myself out. But I don't always live in the nitty-gritty of the details of every day, because there it pulls me and weighs me down. There's something in the middle of that. And I think that's what finding our center leads toward. I want to share a rather lengthy quote here. This is written by Jamie Meyer. He's a St. Paul-based healer and teacher and author. And he calls this the most radical New Year's resolution. Many resolutions are made from a place of self-deprecation. Something is lacking in me, I hate myself for it, and I will change. This is a common backward way we've been taught to make resolutions. But when we form any intention or prayer from a place of self-deprecation, it's not as effective as it can be. There's only one New Year's resolution worth making, and it's deceptively radical. I will be kinder to myself. Rather than focusing on improvement, which is beginning from a place of what's wrong with me, consider turning it around and ask, in what ways can I be kinder to myself? This involves asking myself what self-kindness means. What shape would it take? So this is a challenge of self-assignment, because being kinder to myself means stepping away from the fears that have been driving my prayers and intentions for my whole life. I'm going to read this again. This involves asking myself what self-kindness means, what shape it would take. This is a challenging self-assignment, because being kinder to myself means stepping away from the fears that have been driving many of my prayers and intentions unconsciously for my whole life. Self-deprecation is what the shamans call a spiritual parasite, a core fear that has entered your energy field, usually in childhood, and begins eating at your life force invisibly. There are 7 common spiritual parasites, and in the case of self-deprecation, the fear is unworthiness. A parasite has one goal: to eat just enough of the host's energy to keep that host alive, but weakened so that it can't kill the parasite. Self-deprecation and other spiritual parasites leak your power, but keep you alive so that they can keep eating away at you. We carry these parasites in our whole lives, living smaller, weaker, and more anxious than we really need to be, because we are being eaten invisibly from inside. Jamie says, I'm teaching a class in January that will help folks work deeply on becoming free of old core fears, including the 7 spiritual parasites. He says it's one of my absolutely favorite topics to teach because it's so immediately relevant and helpful to people. If you don't want to take the class, you can muse on this question. Am I generally more afraid of entrapment or abandonment? Am I generally more afraid of being entrapped, or being abandoned. Look at your life to see where these two energies have made decisions unconsciously for you, especially that decisions that have resulted in wreckage. Ask spirit, and he says your spirit world allies, to help you step out of that old place. And so later I'll send out the Anne Bushnell poem, as well as a link to Jamie Meyer's class. It starts, I think, on January 10th. It's online for this work of uncovering and unblocking some of these places that our power leaks out. I love this idea of not a resolution to, I will be better, do better, I'll do this every day and this every day and so on, but a question: how can I be kinder to myself? What does it mean? What are the ways that may live in that question? I could answer one or two or three right away, but if that is the moment of my high resolve, if that is the moment that I want to come back to as a touchstone, a question of the year, how can I be kinder to myself? There are ways that answers will show up I have no idea of. I cannot possibly know what all answers to that question might come forward. And as I am kinder to myself, of course, I am then inviting myself to be kinder to you, to the world, to everyone that I meet. What does kindness have in store for us? And kindness, of course, is related to justice, because it is, should, can be, will available to everyone. Finding my center, this place between the moment of my high resolve and the stillness of just being, for me means finding my breath, literally centered in my body, especially when I drop the breath down to my belly. No matter what is happening in the world, in the news, in my family, with the climate, we're about to head into yet another election cycle. Certainly 2023 will bring us a ramp up of the next election cycle. We don't know what will happen with the pandemic or RSV or the terrible flu that we're in, with inflation. So many unknowns for this year, and so many discoveries that are likely to come forth. The tech discoveries that we will say, wow, look what they can do now. Medical diagnoses that are before us, and good news that may come out of them, or maybe not good news. We cannot know on this blank slate of the 12 months ahead of 2023. And being kind, finding our center, for me means dropping the breath down to the belly, finding our breath, staying with it for a while, maybe 3 good breaths, good cleansing breaths, so that I can meet what news comes toward us, what stimulus comes toward us, with equanimity and with kindness. Let's take 3 deep belly breaths together. If you feel comfortable doing this, set your feet on the floor if you can. And if you're cooking and if you're doing whatever, maybe you could pause for just a moment to do this. If you feel comfortable doing so, you can close your eyes. If not, just hover them slightly open. Exhale your breath and take in a deep, filling belly breath. And exhale. I inhale through my nose and exhale through my mouth. Again. And exhale. And one more. May whatever comes to us, may we accompany it with full, deep breath in the depth of our center. May it be so, and amen.